Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2. Okay, so I think we're live. This is the first test of a live stream in a very long time. Had a broken telescope. Went to take the hyperstar off of the corrector plate several months ago, and that didn't work out very well. Ended up dropping part of the barrel that screws on to hold the connection into the telescope. Long story short, the telescope had to go for repair. It took many weeks to do that, and consequently we were not up in any way. Been a few changes since then. First of all, we have sort of a clearer night. The Perseid meteor shower is tonight. I'm not sure if we'll see any meteors streak across the image that we have up right now. You're here live with the Brampton Observatory. We now that we're back in order again, really hope to be doing more of these live streams, and if you have any questions or anything like that, at some point I will be monitoring what's going on. Not sure if anyone will actually even see this stream tonight, but we are looking right now at the Dumbbell Nebula. We're doing what's called live stacking, which is a function of the ASI Air software, which is great for astronomy outreach. And as you can see, we have quite a star field here. With the hyperstar on this 14-inch telescope, it reduces it down to about 686 millimeter focal length, which is great for wide field astronomy and imaging. The live stacking function that you're seeing here on the screen, right now we have 26 30-second exposures stacked. So typically you would do stacking in post after you've done all your imaging, and you take it into Photoshop, PixInsight, or whatever software you're using, and actually do that in there. This, however, it's not perfect, but it does again work for sort of this live outreach. So it's basically putting image on top of image on top of image, building data, making a better picture. You can save the image at the end of your stack, however long you decide to run it. Right now we again have 27 30-second exposures, which with the hyperstar is more than adequate. That's almost like probably a 2.5 to 3 minute single exposure on the normal telescope. If you're looking at this image and it's clear, hopefully it is relatively clear, in the very center you'll see a very dim star in the center of the nebula, and that's a white dwarf. That's the remnants of the explosion of what's left of that star. White dwarf is a very dense star. A little bit of that material would weigh tons and tons and tons. A spoonful would weigh, I don't even know what, but a lot. So again, this is kind of a test tonight. We're going to go and take a look at this target and maybe one or two others. And the nights now are, well, the days are getting shorter as we move toward fall, end of summer. I know no one loves to see the end of summer. However, it does give you different sets of targets in the sky as we go into the winter months, and hopefully we'll see lots of those as we go through, and hopefully you'll enjoy these live sessions. And as I say, if you have questions along the way, I will be at some point monitoring, and we'll try to answer your questions as best as I can. If you are interested in astronomy and you live in the GTA or actually anywhere in Ontario, there are a variety of organizations that are designed around people who have the interest in the hobby at all levels. You don't have to be a physicist or an astronomer to join these clubs. Anybody can join. They're fantastic. The people are really friendly. The Royal Astronomical Society of Canada has basically chapters across the country. I belong to the Mississauga chapter of the RASC, and meetings are held. If you go to their YouTube site, they do have videos as well, which are instructional and helpful, as well as fun. So we're going to try a bunch of things over what's left of the summer and into the winter time when things get colder. Fortunately, I have an observatory, so in the winter months I have a heated area that I can sit in and do all this and do the imaging. And again, as the days are shorter in the winter time, we have more nighttime image ability. So I'm going to shut up for a while and just let you have a look at this image as it continues to build and stack itself. We're up to 34 now. We'll probably do maybe 150 stacks on this images on this target, and then we'll move on to something else. There are some decent targets in the sky tonight, and hopefully we will not see clouds. That's been a real issue as well lately. The weather has been pretty atrocious here in southern Ontario in terms of clouds, rain. Then we had smoke from wildfires and just about everything else that would mess up your sky at night to have a look at these beautiful sights in the night sky. So I'm going to turn myself off here so you don't have to look at my mug. Whoops, wrong one. Try that again. So anyway, hope you enjoy. Gonna let this run for a while. I will kind of check here on the YouTube and see if anybody's watching, and if we do see anyone, or if I see any questions pop up, I'll definitely answer those. That's my fan you hear in the background, so I'm going to kill the audio for a bit so that doesn't drive you crazy. It is kind of warm and a bit humid tonight. So there is a lot of noise in this image, and light pollution is definitely a factor where I am. I'm in the very north end of Brampton, bordering on Caledon. Unfortunately, light pollution, I should say, is a fact of life that we have to deal with in astronomy, and especially if you're living in a populated area, as I do. Arguably, I could put a special filter I have called a light pollution filter on here that would reduce some of that light pollution. For the purpose of what I'm doing tonight, I'm not using the L-Pro filter that I have. I also have some other narrowband filters for H-alpha and other things. This is a broad, basically wideband image, so it's basically the ASI 294 MC Pro color camera, one-shot color. You can certainly add filters through a filter wheel. This setup doesn't have a filter wheel on it because it's at the front of the telescope, so the filter wheel would kind of block it, but it does have a special slot on the front of the camera that you can actually attach the light pollution filter or any of the other filters. The disadvantage of that, of course, is that you have to manually change it, whereas if you have a filter wheel, you can set it up to automatically change the filters. For the purpose of what I'm doing here for this outreach, that's really not necessary. The image is pretty acceptable for what it is. I can play around with the histogram a little bit, try to darken it up a bit. As you can see there, that's even better. Can play around with the gain a little bit as well, which again, but more gain equals more noise, and the less noise we have in the image, the better. I'm not sure again how well this comes through on streaming. Definitely something I will test further. I'm hoping that you're seeing a decent image of M27, the Dumbbell Nebula. And I'm going to shut up again for a little while. We've got about 56 stacks now. I'm probably not going to go too much longer on this target. Originally I was going to go longer, but I think we'll switch up to another target in a few minutes and have a look at what's out there and what we can see. Unfortunately, my polar alignment is not the best at the moment because I have my neighbor's tree, which blocks me from late spring till mid-fall from being able to align with Polaris with the telescope. There are some other methods for aligning called drift align and some other means to do that, but I've got it fairly close at the moment, so I've been kind of working that for the last couple of weeks, getting it closer and closer and able to get longer and longer exposures without trailing stars. So hopefully I will get it even closer in the next few days for longer exposures for deep space objects, even though the hyperstar allows you, it shoots at basically f2, which is really super fast, and allows you to shoot shorter times but gather more light. So it's a really great tool to have for your telescope. It will only work with specific telescopes that allow you to be able to do that attachment on the front. Mine are Celestron. I'm a big fan of Celestron products. Not all of my telescopes have been Celestron, but certainly this 14-inch Edge HD has been really fantastic. And I'm actually thinking about buying what's called a RASA, an 8-inch RASA telescope, which serves basically the same function as the Hyperstar does. It's an astrograph camera, or telescope I should say. It's designed only for imaging. There is no, unlike the 14-inch Edge HD, there is no ability to do visual astronomy on it. It's strictly for astrophotography. The advantage of it is it does not require to have a Hyperstar in the front. This is all built in, and I've seen some really great images. Now I want that telescope mostly for going portable or running a second rig outside of the observatory in my yard. Haven't made a final decision on that at this time, and it's not cheap for what I would like to do for the mount and the telescope. It's well over $4,000, so obviously budget weighs in on something like that. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. I'm actually headed down to KW Telescope tomorrow, so I might talk to them about it, and it's a tough decision. Is there other equipment I could use with what I have existing that would work just as well? But then I don't have the ability to set up relatively easy in a portable basis if I decide to go somewhere to a dark sky site. There are pros and cons on both sides of the argument, so we'll see what happens, and I'll keep you up to date on that as well. So I also meant to say, certainly up to you, but if you like what you see and you'd like to see more of it, it would be a great help to me if you could support the channel by subscribing. By subscribing, it gives me a lot more influence with our friends at YouTube and the ability to do more of this kind of thing and build on it, and maybe even do some portable remote broadcasts from dark sky sites and things like that. So again, if you like what you see and you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. It's up to you though, for sure, if you want to subscribe or not. If you do, I would be very appreciative. And tell your friends. Set up notifications so that you know when we're going live, and get to see more of the fantastic night sky. One thing we haven't seen tonight, or I haven't seen yet at this particular direction, and we're pointed basically southeast right now, higher in the sky to the southeast. I haven't seen any meteors pass by, and the shower kind of peaked yesterday and today to some degree. So I'm not sure if we move the telescope if we'll see any. We might see. If you see a streak across the picture, it could be just a satellite, or it could be a meteor going by. Anyway, I think we've probably done enough on this particular target for tonight, so I'm going to stop the stacking here in just a second. We'll let it finish this particular target, and then we're going to go off and find another target. I'm not sure which one yet, maybe a galaxy. Okay, so cancel that. We're actually going to download the image. Stop there. And we're going to go find another target. It's going to pop up Starry Night Pro. So we were looking here at M27, it's a planetary nebula, and we're going to swing around. Unfortunately, right now, the Eagle Nebula, which was famous, the Pillars of Creation, is probably a little bit too low for us to view. It's difficult to say, but let's just, for the heck of it, have a look. So I'm going to try to go to M16. As I say, it may be a little bit low. I'm just going to slew the telescope over in just a second here. And we may have a bit of an issue with the slewing. Let's see what happens here. Hang on, everyone. We'll be back in a moment or two. So, trying to find a decent target to look at here, and I tried M16. It's way too low and not very good. This target is a little better. You can see it's kind of off center here. It didn't really center it up very well. Not sure why that is exactly. Just going to do another 30-second exposure here and see if we get. Looks like we may have lost tracking, which unfortunately with this mount, which is getting older, probably needs a little bit of work, can be a problem, plus the lack of a really solid polar alignment. So we'll see what we get here in a second. I'd like to show you Andromeda, which is a big old galaxy. Okay, well, not exactly what we had in mind. Let's play with the histogram here. So that is a galaxy you see off on the right hand side. Darken that up a bit. Very noisy image. We may be getting a little bit of high cloud. I'm going to go have a look and see. Fortunately, I just have to step outside of my warm room. Yeah, there's not really any high cloud, but there is a lot of humidity tonight, and I think that's playing havoc a little bit. So I'm going to see if we can get a shot at Andromeda here. It's kind of 50-50 at this point. Andromeda is actually located over here in this tree, and my neighbor's roof may actually be in the way. These trees have grown a lot bigger since I did this panoramic image. There is the little dumbbell over here. There's a lot of really interesting targets up here that we may take a look at another night once I get the camera clean and kind of get back into live mode again here. So, well, you know what, never hurts to try. So we're going to take a look. Andromeda is, by the way, our closest galaxy to us, and is actually on a collision course with the Milky Way. It's about 2 million light years plus away, but is headed our way, and one day, in all likelihood, our two galaxies will collide, and we'll end up becoming kind of an elliptical galaxy. So let's try it and see what happens. This is also part of astronomy. Sometimes you have to be patient, and you may not get exactly what you're looking for. And in this case, like I say, we're going to take a look at Andromeda here and see if we can get that set up. So bear with me a moment. So it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get it. It's really low. There's a big branch in my neighbor's roof in the way right now. It'll probably be higher in the sky a little later tonight. But for the moment, have a quick look here. Yeah. Let's have a quick look in 31. See if we can get it centered up. Trust me, I will have a better plan. This was kind of impromptu tonight to actually even do this, really just to test everything out. And hopefully we'll do a better job in the coming days and nights that we're getting this together for you. Did detect some stars. We'll see if it's enough. Right now it's doing what's called plate solving, so that basically means the computer on board the ASI Air has a program that tells it where all the stars in the sky are in a particular spot, takes an image, basically matches that image to what it has, and if it detects enough stars it should be able to center your target, which it says it is, and right now we don't see anything. Let's see if we change the histogram. Not looking promising. Too much here. Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. So it looks like quite possibly my tracking has gone off a little bit, and to fix that I would probably have to launch StarSense again and go from there, which at this point tonight probably not going to do. Take a look for one more target. That's Andromeda somewhere down here. Let's see if we move the telescope just a notch down. Andromeda is a very bright galaxy, so and should appear fairly large in our view here when we do get it. So if we don't get it tonight, we'll certainly try for it when it's in a better position in the sky another night. And sorry, my fan's probably driving you nuts here. So it's just loading. Yeah. If you could see where my telescope is pointed, it's really tricky. Between my house, my neighbor's house, the tree, and the branches on the tree, it's not an ideal position, to be sure. And the histogram is all over the place here. Yeah, that's not going to work out, I don't think, tonight. However, we'll take a look, see if we can get one more target before the night's over. This one, sadly, is not going to be it. And let's have a look maybe at a globular cluster. That's, yeah, there we go, M5, which is right up here. It's in my sort of westernish sky. Let's try M5. If this doesn't center, then I definitely have lost my tracking, at which point we will definitely call it a night. And I think it's probably my fault that it's lost tracking. I kind of pushed a button I shouldn't have, and the next thing you know, that's what happens. So the telescope is swinging around. I'm going to go to N5. So we're going to take an image of it first here. Just take a 10-second image. See if we're anywhere close. Okay, so back off a bit on the black point. So we do have a star field. That's a good thing, and certainly a better looking one than we had for the previous targets. Let's see if we can center this up. Wow, so we got a big bunch of stars, so it should be able to center the target. Like I say, if it's way off center, then I know I've kind of screwed something up. It's trying to center the target again. So it did detect a few more stars, I think, this time. Well, it says the target is centered, so it's going to take a quick shot. And there it is. Wow. Okay, so it's a little fuzzy and off-centered simply because it's shooting while the telescope is still moving a little bit. Let's see if we can bring that histogram down a little bit, make it a little clearer. Okay, so that's probably a little bit too much because we lost a lot of that. And we can bring the gain maybe up to 100. See what happens there. I'm going to take a 10-second shot. Okay, it's better. Just bring that histogram up a little bit. There we go. Alrighty. So we're kind of back in business, so I didn't screw things up completely. Histogram is looking fairly good. There's a bunch of noise in this image, and plus the light pollution, as we have no filter on, as I said before. But not a bad image, really, of M5, which is Messier Object 5. It's a globular cluster. Let's see if we can get the camera temperature down a little lower. Let's see if we can get to -20. I really doubt that. But we'll give it a shot here. It's so hot and humid tonight. So we'll see if the camera will. It's already running the cooler at 92%, so, and we're barely at -10 Celsius. So I'm going to actually bring the gain up just a touch more. And see if we can get a little more. It might be a little noisier, but... So what is a globular cluster? A globular cluster is sort of a mini galaxy that orbits outside of our own Milky Way galaxy. They consist of anywhere from thousands to hundreds of thousands of stars, or even potentially millions of stars. Okay, let's readjust the histogram here again with the gain. Bring up that black point. So not too bad here. We can darken it a bit more. Make it a bit more. A lot of people say, oh well, space should be really dark, and there's a lot of argument about that in the community as to how dark your background should actually be. I've heard arguments on both sides of that. There we go. So we're going to go back to the live view again. And we're going to set it up for bin 2. See how that looks. Stack duration, no limit. We're going to do 30 seconds on the stack, so we'll probably have to adjust the histogram again. And, well, we'll see what we get here. Let's start it up. I'm not going to do a lot of images, so I'm going to probably wrap this up in the next little while for tonight. And hopefully if we get some good weather on the weekend, we can get out and get a lot more targets, and I'll let more people know that we're going to be on YouTube. Let's see what happens here. And hopefully it'll be a cooler night. Won't need that fan. Oh, there we go. Yeah, the histogram really blown out. Bring that black point way up front. And we're going to have to bring it more up front. Whoa, too much. So, because of the hyperstar, a target like this really doesn't need 30 seconds. It's really a bright target, and see some vignetting going on here. Yeah, I think with the gain we're way too high, so we're going to bring that gain down to maybe 100 there in that area. Hope you're learning, watching me struggle through. It is a lot of fun, but it can be a bit of work as well. Okay, well, it's a little, yeah, we had the gain way too high. So we're going to clear that stack and start again. So you can see, kind of a zoom in here, the central core where the bulk of the stars are. Whoops, and histogram changed again. Let's bring that way back. And I'm probably still, for this particular object, way bright. Yeah, that's saturated completely. That's even worse. So, going to bring that gain back down to like 45, and we'll see how the next shot comes up here. And we're binning 2x2. I'll explain that another day. So, yeah, we're getting some really funky histograms here. And a lot of vignetting. Okay, so let's go back. Oops. Let's go to here. We're going to change it to bin 1. Okay, we're going to end that session. I'm going to stop the session. I'm going to go into here, change the bin. And we're going to do a restart. And I may even change the amount of time. 30 seconds with the hyperstar is really overkill for this target. See what the histogram gives us in just a few minutes, in a minute there. Okay, so back that way off. I'm going to stop that live stack. Go to preview. And we're going to preview at 10 seconds. Way over here. 0. Drop that down. So I have to, because of the binning, the camera's changed position. So we're gonna have to, and I goofed. So that's what happens when you're in a bit of a hurry. We went to M6 instead of M5, which is basically nothing. We're going to cancel that, and we're going to go to M5. Back to M5, hopefully here. 10-second shot. And let's see if we can go to where we're supposed to be, which is M5. And see if we can center that up a bit. So I'm using an iPhone to connect to my mount for slewing to the position. And then I'm using the ASI Air software with the plate solving to actually go there. I haven't got my mount calibrated properly for the device called StarSense to actually do that plate solving. I really have to do some calibration on that as well to get things as they should be, so that it's more accurate in its initial go-to. Let's see where we are here. And I think we have lost the target. Oh, no, we haven't lost it. It's on the bottom. So it's definitely not centered. Again, I goofed and moved things in the wrong way. Which means sometimes you really got to pay attention. So you can see it way down in here in the corner. We'll kind of move it up. so that it's centered a little more. As for histogram, the 2x2 binning was much better, and I don't know why I screwed around with it, but I did. So that's 10-second exposure. Let's do it again just to see if we're centered up. This is, folks, the kind of thing you go through when you get into astrophotography. So that's a 1-to-1, so that's actually pretty good. For what it is, again, we're pretty light polluted skies and a lot of other things going on here. And yeah, so could probably improve that a little bit. There we go. Let's darken it up, give you a better view of what you're looking at here. Out of curiosity, I'm going to do 30 seconds on it. And as I say, 30 seconds is a little bit overkill. I do have the ability to load in exactly what I want. I would probably do maybe 15 seconds, but again, for the sake of just testing here tonight, a bit of the outreach to give you an idea of what things look like, this is sufficient. The 2x2 binning was actually better with the kind of skies that I have here tonight. So yeah, okay, so we'll bring the black point up a little bit in the histogram, and we can go a little darker here. It's a very noisy image, and we will go back to the stack, go to live, clear what we got here, and we're going to stick with 30 seconds, and hopefully that won't mess up the histogram, and we'll do a few stacks. Just to see what kind of image we get. Turn that histogram off. Anybody out there? Nope. Well, you will see the this on the YouTube live stream. It'll be saved there, so you'll be able to watch it later on. Please skip through the boring parts. Sorry to drag you through it, but it does give you some idea of what is involved in astrophotography. It's not just point and shoot. There is a learning curve. Once you get a handle on it, it's amazing, it's fun. You will have some frustration, believe me. I still have frustration at times when I'm doing this, but the end result is well worth the small amount of frustration that I have in getting things to work sometimes the way I want them to. So we're not going to do a lot of frames of this, to be honest. Might do 15. Let's see. You'll see how the image kind of builds and gets better as it goes. The more data you stack, the better the image will get. And you can see my cooler's at 100%, and I can only get minus 13.5. In the wintertime, easily I can get minus 20 or better because of the ambient temperature outdoors. But certainly with the heat and humidity, I'm not complaining too much at minus 13.5. I could bring the gain up maybe a little more, but again, more gain, more noise. So for the sake of what we're doing here, it's fantastic. For those of you who might just have tuned in late and or skipped ahead and jumping in just now, we're looking at Messier Object 5, which is a globular cluster. A globular cluster is a miniature galaxy orbiting outside of the Milky Way. They can have a variety of different numbers of stars. There are larger globular clusters, there are smaller globular clusters. One of the most famous ones is the Hercules cluster, and hopefully we'll be able to take a look at that as well. There are what are called open clusters, which are not grouped as these globular ones that you can see are, and some of these, to look through a telescope visually, are absolutely stunning. The double cluster, to me, is one of the most magnificent objects in the sky. It's not a nebula, it's not a galaxy or anything fancy. It's just an open cluster, but if you're looking through an eyepiece sort of toward the northwest but toward the east, depending on the time of year, it's just a sight to behold. It really is when you're looking at it visually. When you look up, unfortunately, in the night sky in a light polluted city, you're lucky to see just a few stars, depending on what city you're in and how light polluted it is. Here where I am, I'm in a Bortle 8 zone, and Bortle 8 is really light polluted. When I first moved here, it was a 6. They're building all around us here, and it's getting worse and worse all the time. As I say, there are light pollution filters that will help to circumvent some of that light pollution. I'm not using one tonight. I'm just basically shooting straight through the camera. But if you can get out to a dark sky site outside of the city where the city lights are not as big an influence, the view of the sky just visually, even without a telescope, can be pretty spectacular. So try to do that if you can over the summer. If you can't, then a telescope in your backyard or on your balcony. I met a gentleman a week or two ago that lives in a condo and has his telescope set up on his condo balcony in Mississauga, so you can guess how much light pollution he deals with right in sort of central Mississauga. So, which is I think close to 1 million people, very big population, very bright. But he still loves astronomy and photography, and he combined those two, and he enjoys the hobby. So you can do this hobby in a light polluted area. It just makes it, if you get into the imaging side of it, a little more difficult. But again, there are ways around it with specialized filters and all that sort of thing. I've got some really fantastic images where I am by using some of those filters that the only light they capture, the only wavelength of light they capture is the one that that filter represents, like hydrogen alpha, O2, and there are others out there as well. And that's, I think we just saw either a satellite or perhaps a meteor go by in the right side of the screen. More likely a satellite than a meteor. And I see 2 streaks, so it could actually be Mr. Elon Musk's Starlink satellites going through. That's another issue altogether for astronomers with all of the satellites, and yeah, so that's definitely something you can work on in post-production and take that out of there, but it is extra work that it'd be nice if you didn't have to do. You can also do lots of planetary imaging. I'm not huge on planetary. I do plan on getting a planetary camera at some point. I don't really have one right now that's usable. I do have a Canon 60D camera that I could put on the back of this telescope, because the camera right now is on the front because it uses the Hyperstar. I could take the Hyperstar off and do some planetary imaging. I have done some in the past. I've done Mars, Saturn, Jupiter. Absolutely fantastic. Visually as well as doing some imaging. One thing I always talk about is expectation of what you're going to see visually through a telescope. Doesn't matter the size of the telescope, to be quite honest. Always know that, first of all, there are many wavelengths of light the human eye cannot see. So in the wintertime we have the really M42, the spectacular Orion Nebula. If you were to look through it through a telescope, it's fantastic to look at, but you're not going to see the kind of colors that you see in those pictures on different websites, and even on the side of some of these telescope boxes. When you buy the cheaper ones, it shows you these amazing pictures of galaxies and nebula, and that's not a reality. That's not what you're going to visually see. The human eye is just not capable of it, of seeing that level of color. You do occasionally see some greenish, like the Orion Nebula appears to be more of a grayish cloud. I mean, again, spectacular to look at, really fun, but you're not going to see those colors, so don't hope for that. But today you can actually do astrophotography with an iPhone or an Android phone. There are special adapters you can hook to the back end of your telescope that will allow you to get started. And I always tell people, start out small, have realistic expectations, and you're going to enjoy what you're doing a lot more. Some of my first images many years ago, I look at now and go, oh my heavens, those were absolutely atrocious. But then I think about how proud I was of what I got at that time, and you have a whole new outlook, right? It may well have been kind of horrible 20 years down the road in your eyes, but if you reflect back to how much you enjoyed taking those images and how proud you were of them when you actually got something that looked decent to you, then that's all that really matters. Part of this as a hobby is art, and art is interpretive. So whatever you like is what counts. Other people, you may put an image up there and they'll critique it, hopefully in a positive way, and help you to learn to do it better. But you'll also get some people out there who may not be as kind, and those are the guys, the people that you're just going to ignore and keep on going and enjoy the hobby for what it is and enjoy doing it. Don't let other people ruin what you're enjoying doing. If you're happy with that image, no matter what it looks like, that's all that really counts in the end. Anyway, so we've built up 21 images. We're a little off on the focus here, I see, so that's probably due to the atmospherics. I could refocus the camera with my autofocuser, but I'm not going to do that tonight. So I want to thank you again, everybody who watches this. I know it was short notice, so nobody really was aware to tune in. And sorry for taking you through my testing, but you can get an idea of what it's like to do imaging. Again, I'm very fortunate that I have an observatory, roll-off roof observatory, and a warm room and a control room in here that I can sit in comfortably and do this. But you know what? Getting outside sometimes is fantastic as well. If you do, especially in the summer, make sure you bring bug spray, make sure you bring warm clothing. Depending on where you are, it can certainly get cooler in the evenings. Make sure you have your batteries that you're running your equipment with if you're in a remote location or away from wherever you could plug into battery power, whether it's at your cottage or wherever. Make sure you have all that equipment with you, and something to eat and drink, and just go out and enjoy the night sky. Anyway, thanks again, and you've been watching the Brampton Observatory channel, and like I say, if you'd like to support us more, subscribe to the channel. It would be a big help, and put your notifications on for updates as to when we're live and on the air again. Have a good night, everyone.